Go get on the track.
Today's guest is Miss Shauntel Gaines. She's an energy science practitioner, which includes a yoga instructor, a Reiki grandmaster. She's an arts advocate, which includes a dancer, musician, writer, and model, a motivational speaker, a mompreneur who runs her business on the premise of bridging dreams with reality. She believes it's through the arts and authentic expression that we open ourselves to living a life that reflects our hearts. It is in her poetry, rhymes, songs, and dances she unites her visions with reality, intertwining the flavors of her imagination and spirit to produce her spices of life. Shauntel Gaines runs an organization called Intense Movement. It is an organization that will help others pay for certification to pursue their certifications.
Just jump back and then...
I am. And educate the general public about the benefits of mindfulness. She is passionate about community service and etching a space in the future where the arts and self-awareness regain the platform in the public sector like it did in the days of old. And she's one of my good friends, Miss Shauntel Gaines. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you on. I've been waiting to have you on because I think you have a lot to say to women and others out there about domestic violence with your experiences. So I guess I want to begin is, when did you first start to experience or notice that there was some domestic violence? And I don't know where you want to start along your journey with the story.
Okay, so I'll start at the beginning. I think for me, I've been exposed to domestic violence at a very young age.
Okay.
I have early memories from being like 4 on up. And as time progressed, the experience of domestic violence intensified. However, that was when I was younger. But the part of it that I guess we'll focus on today is the experience I had as an adult, which I think the experiences as a child opened the doorway for when I was an adult. There's a lot of people don't understand that most of the time, a person who kind of stays in the guiles of domestic abuse, it's because of the programming they've been given about setting boundaries and their rights and how they're allowed to advocate for themselves.
Absolutely. I agree with that. As I was doing some research, that was one of the things it discussed was learning how to set boundaries and trust and respect with your partner.
Right, exactly. And just even now in the space that I'm in personally and privately now, like I am actually, the topics that I talk about on my radio show, they're topics that I know I was never taught about growing up. Like this week we talked about boundaries. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Which is very, very, very pertinent to what we're talking about now.
Absolutely.
And even in going through the information and trying to figure out how I was going to structure the show, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to do this, or I need to start implementing this. And I've actively started doing it the week before. And I was like, hey, that actually works.
Yes.
So as an adult, there are things that I'm still learning tools that I wasn't given as a child, as a preteen, as a young adult, that would have protected me. Simple tools that would have protected me from my ex-husband, who was my abuser, in our dating phase.
So tell me about that. Did you notice when you all started dating anything then, or did it happen as the relationship progressed along, further along?
Right. And we dated for 2 years prior to getting married. We were both active duty soldiers. When we started dating, I had already been through like some pretty extreme situations and I was exhausted. And I do think that if I'd met him, if we started dating any earlier, I wouldn't have. In the process of our dating, about maybe 12 to 13 months in, I was like, I'm going to stop dealing with this dude. But I had a conversation with a friend and I considered the points, and my friend didn't know he didn't really know my ex-husband that well, but he knew me, and he was just giving me some advice based on the kind of guy that he was.
Okay.
And my ex-husband turned out to be a master manipulator. So the guy I married was not the guy that I ended up with 30 days into the marriage.
Okay.
So much so where I'd gone to him while I was pregnant in tears, like, hey, like, it's been a while and I thought you were just struggling with trauma from having to deploy, but that's not the case. You've been back for a while. Like, what happened to the guy that I married?
Okay.
And he was just like, well, when I was dating you, I was trying to be a better person and that didn't work out for me. So now you're just stuck with what you have.
Really?
Right. Exactly, because he was very attentive. He wasn't overly attentive like they say in the descriptions, like someone who's like really just pouring it on. He wasn't pouring it on. He was just a regular guy from Virginia. He had his challenges, which were some indicators too. And I didn't know how to read the indicators because someone who's been abused, if they don't tend to it, and they could be abusive, like you can go one way or another.
Yes.
You can be susceptible to the abuse later, or you become the abuser.
Yes.
So he became the abuser and I was the one who let it happen. So it was kind of like when we were dating, there were slight things, but I just thought they were personality things. Like I remember one time I was coming on my moon cycle and my body was sore and he wanted to like embrace me. And I was just like, I don't really scoot over a little bit. And he was like, you're with me. Like, I should be able to touch you when I want. And I was just like, hold up. Like, no, my body, it doesn't matter what your status is with me, my body, what I say goes. Like, you don't get to
permission.
Right.
Yes.
And so he had a tiny attitude about it, but I didn't know then that an attitude at all was unacceptable.
Yes.
The fact that we even had that conversation was unacceptable. But it also, after the fact, like years after, and getting to really know who my paternal father is and spending time around him and watching him around women, and then flashing back to the experiences that I had with him and the things that I witnessed as a little girl, my ex-husband is a more intelligent version of my father.
Okay.
So the way that he was violating me, even in dating, in things that I thought were kind of minor personality glitches, if you want to say, they mirrored how I associated with how men acted, because that's how my father was.
Yeah, so it was so familiar to you.
Very
that
much
it did
so.
not raise these red flags of warning signs saying, wait a minute.
Now, actually, hindsight, I did have red flags.
Okay.
Because just to be brief about it, the context of my abuse as a youngster was extreme sexual abuse.
Okay.
And so I was programmed very early that my boundaries didn't matter, or that if something happened to me, how I felt about it didn't matter, because I was surrounded by people. I have a really big family.
Okay.
And as I grew up, I realized that other people had been abused, not exactly the same way that I'd been, but
some form of abuse.
Right. It tend to, being the victim doesn't matter.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So my alarms, I'm very sensitive. I'm an energy worker. I'm sensitive about a lot of things. And so my alarms are subtle, but I've learned that I need to pay attention to them. And this experience is what really highlighted how, okay, like I did see that. I do feel that. I did not like that. Well, why didn't I speak up about that? That kind of thing.
Okay, so it's brought you more of an awareness so that now for the future.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that your alarm bells definitely go off and you stop there if you see anything.
I check it at the door.
Yeah.
I check it at the door. I can hear it in initial conversations.
Okay.
And even in dealing with coworkers and even counterparts, like even in work environments, like one thing you're not going to do is compromise me. And I also have found myself becoming an advocate for other people. I'm not going to sit by and let you compromise anybody else. Because when we're collaborating, it's, you have the right. I found this quote not too long ago. And what a lot of people don't understand, especially when you're on the receiving side of abuse, a lot of the times we make excuses for them.
Oh, absolutely.
We justify, but it's not intentional. You don't feel in the moment, you don't feel like it's an excuse. You just simply feel like, man, this person is going through a lot. I care about them. How can I support them?
Yeah, you love the person. So it's a conflict.
Right.
Your emotions are conflicted.
Right. And before you know it, because I didn't see, I know our first incident, in my mind, I was like, I need to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But I also thought immediately after that, I thought about the pressures that he was under. I thought
Mm-hmm.
about his childhood and how it all made sense.
Yes.
And I also didn't want to bail out on my marriage. I think I had an unhealthy perspective of what marriage is
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't have a healthy relationship with my parents. I had a imaginative view of what marriage was that wasn't so good. It was toxic because in my perspective, I was supposed to give everything I had.
Okay.
And I was included in that. I didn't really realize like I had right to have boundaries.
Yes.
I knew it,
Yes.
but in terms of how to make that brain life connection,
Mm-hmm.
you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Absolutely.
And so I think for me, if I would have known, like this, if I would have got a hold of this quote that I found the other day, I would have been like, oh my goodness. Okay, it's from Harriet Linner.
Okay.
And it says, an intimate relationship is one in which neither party silences, sacrifices, or betrays the self, and each party expresses strength and vulnerability, weakness and competence in a balanced way.
I love that.
You see it?
Yes.
Oh my
Explains
goodness.
everything.
And it's the perspective that I have in a relationship. But I've been given so many messages, subliminal and very blatant, like you make sure you please your man. Like if he wants it, if you said what you won't do, no, somebody else will.
Well, you hear that all the time.
But that's not true.
But it's not true.
Exactly.
Yes, it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
I think there has to be, in a healthy relationship, the boundaries, a mutual respect, a trust, the proper communication, all of those things for it to truly work.
Right. And the lesson that I teach my boys is you have to be whole.
Yes.
Nobody's perfect. No. But if you're struggling with something, you leave her alone. Leave her alone.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Like if you are still seeking your journey, your path, you need to be whole yourself, especially as the man.
I think you can't come into the relationship not whole. That's my personal opinion.
Just period, right?
Yes,
like that's just period. Because if the saying goes, hurt people only hurt people. So even now to date, I'm experiencing domestic issues with my ex-husband. And now it's affecting my younger son, his son.
Okay.
My older son and I have been affected by him, and my older son isn't his child.
Okay.
And being the hopeful, forgiving person that I am, and which makes me a target for master manipulators, because in my opinion, everybody can change. This next time could be the time that you get it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I check myself with that now.
Yes, I believe people get to make another choice.
Right.
A different decision.
Yes.
It's the question of will they and when they.
Right.
And so then we have to protect ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
To ensure we're not violated.
Exactly.
So we have to check ourselves at all times to make sure, because you're giving, forgiving, open, especially I know you're very open to the possibilities of what people can be. Yeah. And hopeful.
I can see it because I'm a person that can see, I can feel what people are going through. I can see their passions. Like when I look at a person, I see their struggle, I feel their pain, but then I also see their potential. Yeah. And I have a hard time not seeing their potential.
Okay.
And I had to learn in many different circumstances that no matter what potential I see, the person has to be acting upon that continuously. You're only as great as your last action.
Absolutely.
And I literally, that's a meditation for me, a consistent one. Because when I go into places and I see people, I meet people, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so great, blah, blah, blah. But then I have to reel myself back in and say, okay, so what's real?
Absolutely. I like that. I like that. Because I think people have many faces.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm an overachiever naturally. I'm going to give it all I got. Yes. Now, I might procrastinate. I'm a creative, so I might procrastinate, which me being able to go off the fly tends to be a good additive because I can. It's not that I'm not thinking about it because I'm investing my whole being into it. If I agree to it, I'm investing my whole being. But I'm that when's the deadline? You gonna get what you asked for by the deadline? Not that much. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And some of my mentors they are really hard on me because of it, because they feel like my potential to produce is way greater than what I produce. And, what I've really learned about myself is that I'm in a space of healing and really facing those things. And I'm trying not to be emotional about it, but in really facing how the guiles of domestic violence has really affected me on a very deep level. Because just recently in my meditations, what's come to the surface is that in my heart, somewhere down the line at a very early age, I just believed that it's not that I deserved what was happening, but it just happened. It happened.
It's familiar. You're attracted to it. You know what I mean? It's familiar.
Right. And I really have to do a lot of work at changing my internal conversation, which I'm noticing is working because I'm not attracting the same type of people professionally or intimately. Like every I hate to say this like this, but every person is an upgrade and every person gets a little closer to what I know works with me and my personality. And that's one of the things that I really think that I focus on personal power with the work that I do with my private clients. We talk about personal power because a person who allows themselves to stay susceptible to domestic violence, especially in their adult years, they do not believe in themselves.
I would agree. Now, I want to get back to how did you get out of the situation and how is it affecting your son and how are you dealing with it and what processes you're doing for him to heal also.
Okay. And so how I got out.
Okay.
He chased me out.
Okay.
I was married and my interpretation of marriage was till death do you part. But I'd gotten to the point, I was about 33. Actually, I was 33 because it was the December after my birthday and it was in October. And I had just gotten to the point where in my prayers, in my prayer talk with the Creator, I was just like, I need to understand this. I don't know that this is the right thing. Actually, I know this isn't right, but I don't know what to do about it because I married him, And I was just like, listen, you need to show, like, if I'm supposed to leave,
tell me now. Yeah. Give me some major sign. I'm supposed to leave.
No. Move my feet in the steps that I'm supposed to do. Because if I was supposed to go and I knew I got signs already, but those signs weren't enough. You see what I'm saying? I was literally by myself in this. I had friends that now that I look back, everybody knew what was going on, but nobody ever said anything.
And why do you think? Do you think everybody's just scared or don't know how to approach the subject?
I don't know, because I have a friend that's going through domestic violence, emotionally and financially. And when we talk, I can't hold it. Like, I'm like, I don't care.
I don't think you should.
I think real friends.
Be authentic. Tell people what you think. Even if you're wrong, at least I was trying to protect you.
Exactly.
And make sure things were okay.
Exactly. Like, I have a girlfriend that when we were younger, her now husband, who was her boyfriend then, he was abusive to her. And I was not living in state anymore. So I called her mom. And so she stopped talking to me for years. We've been best friends since we were 12 and she stopped talking to me for years. But I told her, I was like, I don't care how mad you get at me. Your safety is important. And what he's doing, I knew to act on somebody else's behalf. But getting back to how I left, it basically took him trying to kill me with my son in my arms. If I didn't have the training that I have and was trained to breathe while being choked, I was literally in the position where I was against the wall with my feet dangling, with my son in my arms, and was literally one breath away from not being able to take another breath. And I knew it. So I was preserving my breath to sustain my own life. And then the way that he had me, and it was really kind of weird because how do you, I know for a fact that if my son wasn't in my arms, one of us would not be living right now because I was raised to protect myself. And I got jobs that offered training where I learned how to protect myself for that reason alone, because I've been in positions before where I needed to protect myself, or I was protecting myself, but my physical strength just wasn't enough. Like I fought till my body gave out, and I needed to know that I could handle myself. But I know for a fact that if my son, and he was a baby at the time, if Eli wasn't in my arms, one of us would not be alive. And so the situation ended with him pinning me down with his weight on the floor, belly down, with my son underneath me screaming. So I'm doing all that I can to keep my weight and his dad's weight off me. And he was looking for car keys because he basically entrapped me in the house and turned my phone off. And so, I wouldn't give him my car keys, and that's what ignited it. I paid all the bills. I turned the lights out and da-da-da. And this was like the second time in less than 24 hours in a really long time that I spoke up, because I usually would just keep peace. I don't want any problems, whatever. You got issues. You could be mad, so be mad. But whatever it is, just here, take it and go on. But I was done with that. I was repairing my credit, and I knew it was time to move on. I just didn't know how it was going to happen.
Okay.
And the night before, he'd had done something, and I went into my office, locked the door, and was planning my exit route. Like when I went back into the house and looked at my board, it was like, get a job, get a place.
Okay. You had the steps.
I was ready to go. So this was the morning after.
Okay.
And what set him off was me saying, hold on, my name is on all of the bills. When we got together, I was working too. And we wouldn't be where we are without me too. Do not mistake it. And before I could finish saying that, I had hands around my neck.
So that just really
right. And this is simply the truth. And so he was raging, just trying to pull everything out of my bag to find these keys. And I was just like, hey, Sherman, let me get out the door and I'll give you whatever you want. And he just calmed down, and then he got off me, and I walked out the door, and I kept going to the neighbor's house.
Okay.
And she let me call the police.
Okay.
And so I think it still hadn't, right?
Yes.
And what really drove home was when the police took him in. I went back to the house, and there were cookies in the oven and a video game on pause. Like that is what made me just go, okay, like I can't. And I think one of the reasons that made it all last so long is because I was by myself. I didn't have a support system. I wanted to stay engaged way longer than we did, because he was about to deploy, and it turns out that he pressured me to marry him that soon because he wanted that family separation pay for deployment.
Okay.
And just read that the cookies in the oven.
You think it was a contradiction is what said I can't do this anymore.
Like you just seeing that. You just had me up. You basically you tried to kill me. You tried to kill me, and I had your son in my arms. And so the cookies in the oven was like, who does that?
I don't know who would do that. It doesn't make sense.
I've been in physical altercations before, and once everything was over, I was so grief-stricken immediately after.
Yes.
Even though I was protecting myself, like I defended myself, and I grief-stricken. And you're my husband. So it was time to go.
The action, but I understand
it was time to go.
So that then I'm thinking what we need to say is one of the first things for anyone, male or female, that would be going through a domestic abuse of any sort is to have a support system of some sort.
And I was on the poetry scene here in town, and that's another reason why I've kind of stepped back from the poetry scene now.
Okay.
Because I'm a person that thrives off authentic connections. And I really feel like if someone is a part of my community, that it's important that they know that they're supported. Even in that situation, that's the kind of person that I am. And even though I never grew up with that kind of support, it's something that I know is important to me. And I think that, that's why I was saying about him pressuring me to marry him.
Yes.
Because staying true to your inclinations, because you don't always have the support system, but you're intuitively, you know. And if you're not comfortable doing something, it doesn't matter what the person says.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I think women still, to this day, we suppress the initial gut feeling or the initial thought. And that probably was the best thing.
Oh my
the
gosh.
first thing that came up for you.
Oh my gosh. Like and honestly, it doesn't matter what your gender is. Like if you have a question about it, you need to stop.
Yes. Check it and see why you're having the question. So stop.
Yeah. And allowing yourself to be resolved in that, because that was the beginning. For me, that was the beginning. That one time I go, okay, like, I don't like horror movies and you want to take me on this date to this movie. So yeah, there were red flags all over the place. They were just red flags that I didn't notice. I don't like to go to the movies at all because my system is sensitive, but he was a movie goer. So we went to the movies, then it became, I don't like Chinese food. And I like Asian food. Like it's one of my Mediterranean food and Asian food. Like it's just what my body likes. But I wasn't eating much of it once we started dating.
Because he didn't like it.
Right. Yeah. Because he didn't like it. Or and it got so bad to the point where he could like smell it if I had it earlier in the day. Because I'm like, I'm not going to see him till later today. So I'm going to eat lunch. You know what I'm saying? And then it would be whatever. And so I didn't really realize that.
So the power and control started early. We just
didn't see it. And so if I had a support system, if I had real friends, if I had a family environment like my children have with me, like I noticed an inkling of a change in disposition and I'm like, hey, what's going on?
That's what you're supposed to do.
You see what I'm saying? Like that would have helped me say, you know what? I don't care whether you like Asian food or not. It's my body. I get to eat it. If you don't like it, then roll.
Yes.
Like what I would say now. Like
yes, I know you would say it now. That I do know.
But I think we need to talk about it more. And I also think
I got a question though. What symptoms do you think your friends at the time would have seen in you? Because I was thinking about doing, when I did my research, the symptoms of someone that may be being abused. Were there some symptoms you think you gave off that they saw?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, in my case, though, I've been displaying these symptoms all my life.
Okay.
Because I've been experiencing it all my life. And I've developed a pseudo existence, a pseudo personality to survive. Like, I'm definitely fortunate that what I do present to the world is authentic.
Yes.
But a lot of people wouldn't believe that I'm an introvert and I'm really, really shy. But I've always been forced to be in front of people, to suck it up and think about the best. And so like here lately, I've been questioning, am I really a silver lining searcher? Or is it just because I had to find something to relate to be able to give them what they wanted? So, and gratefully, I've determined that I really am. But I think that also is the reason why I'm sitting here able to have this conversation. It's ingrained in who I am. But in terms of answering the question about symptoms, they're very simple.
Okay.
If you have a very talkative friend who all of a sudden isn't talkative that much anymore, or you have a friend who is doing something that they really like, even if it's little, because we think about overachievers more than we think about people who aren't, oh, she's doing this, she's doing that, she's doing this, she's doing that, and she's not doing all of that anymore. Sometimes it's just one thing. It starts with one small thing. If you know that you have a friend and you guys always talk on Wednesdays and they're of the opposite gender, and they just got in a new relationship and they're not talking to you on Wednesdays anymore, that's a sign. Like I have brothers, they're not my blood brothers, but they're my brothers, and when we met, we were all single.
Okay.
And in the process, they've become married, and their wives, they don't have any problems with me because they know we're family, and do not have to worry about me. You know what I'm saying?
I love that.
And so we talk and we're close, and they're mates. Even when they were just starting dating, they're not intimidated. They weren't given ultimatums. Our friendships weren't interfered with.
Yes. Did you make excuses for your partner? Because I know can be with
And
so.
for me, I didn't make excuses. I just withdrew.
Okay.
I just didn't let people get close enough to really, really see.
Protected.
Right. But I was raised to not talk about what's going on in my house.
Okay.
However, in the process, when you're being abused, there is no silent. Like you need to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You need to get away. Like you need there is no, I'm going to go here and talk about this and go back. No, you pack a bag and you leave.
No, I get it because I know in my 20s, I had someone to hit me once. And like you initially, I knew that was wrong.
Yeah.
But okay, they had a bad day or whatever. You make an excuse for the person.
Automatically.
But then when it happened again, I was like, okay.
Now, knowing your family, if you would have told them that first time,
the cavalry would have been there.
Oh, so but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, but Tamara has always been this kind of, I'll figure it out. So instead of causing a whole lot of problems, which I knew it would be if I called the cavalry in the family in, I just eased my way out of the relationship.
Saved his life. Probably.
Yeah. I probably did.
But that's the thing. I mean, and I don't know how people feel about, judgment and things of that sort. But I also am a yogi and I believe in karma and what goes around comes around in the essence. But I also allow the universe to play that role. I don't decide. However, but in a situation where, and it's a universal law that self-preservation is mandatory. Like it's just how things are designed. Even the most passive amoeba will strike if it feels like it's about to be pressed into death. You see what I'm saying? Yes. And so what happened to me is that I've been taking care of myself all my life. And I was when I started dating this man, I was like I was questioning my personality because in this society, you can't be too assertive. If you know what you want and are willing to fight with what you want, there is a question.
Yes. You're exactly right about that.
And so
especially as a woman,
going into this relationship, I was questioning, like, am I aggressive or am I, and he just happened to catch me when I was tired, especially coming out of a situation where I was just in another state addressing my older son's family for the things that they let happen to him. There was so many things. So back to the signs, it's like for a person to just be able to highlight what's happening within them, because we notice the signs way before the people outside of us notice the signs.
Absolutely.
So if you find yourself not calling your family as much anymore, because you probably weren't calling, like you probably hit a lull in calling your family when that happened.
I just ensured not to say anything.
Which isn't free expression as you would normally have.
No, because I talked to my family, but I'm just talking.
Exactly.
This was going on, this. So no, you just make sure to not say anything because it's going to cause issues.
Exactly. And that thought pattern is like something I really want to figure out a way to challenge, because it's not causing an issue if you've been violated.
No, not at all. It's just, I don't want to deal, why do I need them all to deal with it? I can handle this and be done with it. And you know who I am now, right? I can handle it. Let's be done with it.
Yeah.
It won't happen again. I'm going to make sure I take care of this. And there won't be no drama for him, no drama for me. I'm good. I'm going to keep on going. But by doing that, though, you don't get to share your true expression. You don't get to help someone else. You don't get to empower someone else.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then, too, the abuser needs help.
Yes.
And they need to be addressed.
Yes.
And sometimes the way that we work psychologically, you need to be addressed with the energy that you're sending out. Like, you send the message the way the person's going to receive it. Because back in the day with people who got abused, their families were on it. Like that person who was the abuser, like they got served, and in some communities, they would be surrounded by the community and their issues would be addressed, whether it was violently or psychologically or spiritually. Like the abuser became surrounded with having to fess up and be accountable.
Yes.
We need to get back to that. But with the way that society is, it's easier for things to go underneath. We have children who are committing suicide because of being bullied at school. But as families, as friends, we have civic duty to look out for each other. Like,
absolutely. There needs to be more of it. What is it? I'm my brother's keeper.
Yeah.
We have to look out for each other.
Absolutely. I was an active duty soldier. Like people saw me every day. I spent more time at work than I spent at home, and they knew I was going through something, but they didn't. It's not my monkey, not my show.
Yeah. So everybody just goes on.
Yeah. Even one of the things, like I said, I was doing poetry and spoken word in the community. I wasn't going to my regular spots anymore. Or the nature of my work is very spiritually implicated. And then I got to the point where some stuff was emotionally influenced. Like, I'm very particular about what I share, but what I started sharing was like a lot more aggressive in nature than what I would normally share. So if my friends were paying attention, and the friends that I do have that were legitimately friends, they noticed, but they also knew I was very protective and very closed off. And the ones that I did talk to, especially one in particular, she said that she didn't say anything because she thought that she would be, and she didn't want to make me mad, and she didn't want me to cut her off because she knew I was going into a show. And she's right. If she would have said something, I probably would have stopped talking to her. But just because I didn't want, and it was me not wanting to bring anybody into my mess. Exactly.
I get it. I get it. But it's the wrong decision.
Exactly.
Everyone is the wrong decision. Bring them into the mess so that you can be helped.
If somebody puts their hands on me again, ever, which we probably won't have that problem. No. But they're gonna, number one, they better hope somebody comes to their rescue.
All of us will come running.
I am going to be making so much noise.
Absolutely. You better.
You see what I'm saying?
But you're not going to let it happen again.
No.
I already know this.
But you see so it's like, we have to get out of the perspective that saying what is happening to us is causing a problem. Right. Sounding the alarms is not the bad thing. What's happened to you is the bad thing.
Yes, it is the bad thing.
It's the bad thing.
And I wish my 20-something-year-old self knew that.
Right. But the impulses or the programming that we're getting from the media, the music, it's very, very violent and aggressive and impeding. And with music, and you know how I am about music, I'm very particular. And what I've gone through is the reason why I like to wear shorts. I'm very tasteful in what I wear, but I like to be comfortable. And I should not, as a student, as a girl, as a woman, no matter where I'm going, I shouldn't be denied access or sent home because I have on short shorts.
No.
The man or woman nowadays, the person who is incapable of being respectful and respecting the fact that I'm a person and not a piece of meat or a sexual, sexual image or object, should be the person that is banned from participating because they don't know how to treat people with respect.
I would agree. One of the last questions, I think. How are you helping your son? We didn't get back to that.
Okay,
Make sure we hit on that so we can help someone else. What's going on? How do you supporting him?
Okay, so my younger son has been told by his dad. My younger son has basically been scared into fear to be silent.
Okay.
And his dad has done some things to him that he's still uncomfortable talking about. But there are a few things that he has told me.
Okay.
Ultimately, I let my son live with his dad for a little while because I thought it was important for him to know his dad. That hopeful thinking, not everybody's different. Like in my process, even though now I realize that it's still in the cycle of abusive thinking. And I really want the people listening to hear me closely. Like, this thought pattern that I had prior to letting my son live with his dad was still an abusive, it was the victim mentality, because I felt I justified. Okay, so yes, he abused me. Yes, he abused my older son. However, he couldn't possibly be abusive to his own child.
I'll agree with you.
You see what I'm saying? But it's still a indicator that I did not have a healthy support system, because I talked to my mom about it. I talked to a lot of people about it, and nobody said, "Are you freaking crazy? Are you crazy? Are you crazy?" Like, no, ma'am. Like, if it were me talking to one of my friends, I would have had a fit.
Well, if I knew you then. I would.
So number one, I'm in the process of finding some counsel, some help to really get to the bottom of understanding how I think and how it's been influenced by that number one.
Yes.
Educating myself
Yes.
is number one, is how I'm helping my son.
Yes.
Number two, honoring my intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I knew something was going on, but it took for my son's teacher to pull me aside and say, listen, when he comes from your house versus when he comes from dad's house, he's two totally different kids. Something wrong is happening at dad's house, and I need you to fight for him.
Okay.
So in my situation, I've been in court where I was made to be the aggressor, so he didn't get charged for trying to kill me. Yet again, more things that indicate what I'm experiencing is not necessarily the important thing. And so my impulses are to go with the flow, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But in this situation, I just decided so now I know Elijah's not going to tell me, but I know something's going on.
Okay.
And so once Elijah saw me starting to honor my intuition, he started getting more comfortable.
Okay.
So I needed to create a safe space for him. That's number three. Yeah, number three, creating that safe space where, because as the kid, he's conflicted. Like he said it himself. He's so aware.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, Mommy, I know what my dad has done to me is wrong, but I also don't want to get him in trouble.
Yeah,
I love him, and I don't want to tell you because I know it's going to hurt your feelings. Like, I know you care about me. And I'm like, but we need to. And so it's been really interesting. But what I've also done is I've filed paperwork all the way along the way. I did everything in court.
Okay.
Even though our custody agreement was initiated by him, like I'm the defendant and he's the plaintiff, but it was right after I left and he wanted full custody and didn't want me to see Eli. But luckily, North Carolina is the way that they are, and there's a whole process. Like I know now that wouldn't have happened anyway, but I advocated for myself. And my response was very thorough enough where his lawyer was like, dude, just settle for every other weekend and once during the week. Like, you really don't have any ground to stand on.
Yes.
But that custody agreement stands because it was signed by a judge. When I let him stay with dad, we had a notarized letter signed. So know the law, work through the courts, give yourself that backing, because I'm representing myself in the modification of the custody order, because now I want full custody in terms of legally, because I need to be able to do what Elijah needs without having to go through abusive conversations, blah, 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 because dad is still very active in his abusive tendencies. And I'm also requesting psychological evaluation, especially if he wants to spend more time with Elijah, because his son does not want to see him at all and has an extreme anxiety attack at the thought of having to see dad. So number 5 is advocate for your child at all cost. At all costs.
I agree. Absolutely.
And knowing that, Elijah is with me all of the time, and I'm homeschooling him because going to school is a trigger, because he knows, based on the law, based on what the custody order says, dad can go get him.
Okay.
And he's like,
I know that. Okay.
Like, if there isn't distinctive paperwork saying what can and what cannot happen,
then it's okay for him to come.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just like it was okay for me. Dad, we had a notarized letter, but in the paperwork, it did not say I could not go to the schools.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have signed it if it didn't.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So the school is just the common ground. So they have to, like, I'm his parent. You see what I'm saying? And so Eli knows that. And Eli also knows that dad used that abusively in a way. He was keeping Elijah from me. Like, intentionally keeping him from me. And for what? So Elijah being able to witness me sitting there typing the court memorandum, like I'm representing myself. Everything that a lawyer would do, I've done myself. So him being with me, going to the courthouse, and interestingly enough, with the way that he's designed mentally and emotionally, if he was not with me, it would affect him. And in the situation where we were at the point in time, I was not comfortable leaving him with anyone because he was traumatized.
Yes.
And so for him to be there and listen to the court clerk say, well, there's already a court order in place. And you don't need to be here at this court. You need to go to this court, and you only need to file an amendment, and your court order trumps your letter from the notary.
Okay. Gotcha.
So then I went right to the school and gave them a copy of the court order. And it's like, from now on, you guys need to be contacting me. Like, he needs to be on this bus. Like, okay, the tide was never shifted, but because of my own understanding. So educate yourself. Mm-hmm. Counseling, so that that's a part of educating yourself, knowing the law and going to counseling, making sure you're using healthy thought patterns. What was number 2? Trying to recap.
I know we said be an advocate for yourself and your kids.
Yes, being an advocate, speaking up, standing up, like even if it's uncomfortable. Like
absolutely. Stand in it and be uncomfortable.
The secretaries at the school, when they saw me coming, they would be like, "Oh God,
here she comes again,"
because they knew when I was coming, something was about to change, and then Sherman would be there at the school having a hissy fit.
Okay,
so they didn't want to see me coming because they don't want to deal with him. But that's not my problem.
No,
that's not my problem. You see, and so being secure in where you stand, following your intuition, because it's hard going to the school and seeing them roll their eyes and suck their teeth at you because they know it's about to be trouble, but it's not trouble when you're advocating for yourself and for your children.
You see, your kid's life.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So it just is what it is. But with all of that happening, and I also in the process, I found a family therapist to see Eli, which ended up turning into an opportunity to have mediation where we didn't have to sit in the same room.
Okay.
But he turned it down because he's made it very clear he had no intention. He has no intention to find a common ground.
Okay,
you see, and sometimes the abuser gets to a point where they're so used to getting away with it. Now they're being very Now, when you're dealing with an abuser that's very bold and blatant, there's danger. You need to be careful that they're so comfortable where they feel like they can just say what they're up to, and it's very abusive in nature. You have a problem on your hands, and you need to be careful. And so with me, I knew it, following my intention. Following my intuition, I knew I don't want to do mediation with him in the same room. I don't even want to be in the same building with him. Like, that's just not where I'm at, even to this day. You see what I mean? And the incident happened back in 2010 in December. Like, he's still harboring that crap. We've been divorced.
You should do it separately.
Right. We've been divorced since 2012, and my son is 10 right now, and he's actively going through this. Like, this is what was happening with us this year. You see what I mean? Yeah. And so the family therapist, at first he was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with Elijah. Like, looking at him, talking to him, he's okay. And I'm like, no, he's not. I'm an energy worker. I'm not just going to let my son walk around imbalanced and whatever, but I have to do a lot of work on him. Like, this is not okay. We don't, just because we're going through something, we don't have to look like we're broken. And so that has all the way along the way, that has worked against us in terms of getting support from the community. However, I just refuse to let us be overtaken. But the therapist was very supportive after I went back to him and told him what was happening. Then he was like, he was so apologetic. And so he was like, whatever you need, let me know. And after Elijah acted out in school, got suspended, and I'm going to try to wrap it up really quick, but he got suspended for like the second time in less than a month. Less than 3 weeks. And this is Eli we're talking about. And this is not him getting, no way. Like, that's a problem. And being very aware of who I'm dealing with, like seeing the signs. He was displaying the signs very clearly. And I decided they had testing coming up, end of the school year testing. And his teacher, she's overwhelmed with kids. She really doesn't have the opportunity to do what she wants to do as a trained psychologist. She's a trained psychologist, so she knew what to look for. When she said there was a problem, it was legit. You see, but she's trained in Jamaica. She's not familiar with all the laws in the state, so her hands were tied. But she made sure I knew she knew. And so I'd have been working with her because he was failing in class, but he's brilliant.
No, he's a smart
He's
kid.
brilliant. And so what I decided to do was keep him home and prepare him for the test myself. And just picking up his test scores yesterday, he didn't have passing scores in the class. He struggled, but man, this dude in the ELA part of the test, he ranked a 4.
Okay.
Where most of the kids in the school ranked a low 3. How do you?
He's very smart. I've met him. He's very smart.
The letter, and so when you're in the space where something needs to happen, or another thing that I want to advise people to do is to just ask for what you need, even though it seems outlandish. Let the organizations tell you no. Ask for it, because a lot of times when people really have a good picture of what's going on, they're not going to tell you no. But if you don't ask, you don't get it. So I asked the school and I asked the principal. I was like, hey, you know what's going on? Because I had to deal with him a lot because of what was going on. And I was like, listen, Elijah's having a hard time. Like, he's actually in your office now, because he's been acting out in school for the last 2 years since he's been with dad, but the teachers are having sympathy. So he didn't know that Elijah was acting out of school.
Okay.
And so I went to him preliminarily to say, hey, listen, I'm having this problem. I'm about to really start taking action. And it may spill over into the school. I need you to be aware, but I also need to put things into place for Eli. Do you guys have a counselor? And they didn't. So that was another part of the problem, you see? And so I let him know, like, I need to keep Elijah home with me. He does not need to be here at school. It's a huge trigger. What do you need from me to make this okay? He was like, I need a letter from the therapist. He is seeking I have him in therapy. Yes. Yeah. The answer was yes. So he was like, just get a letter from the therapist. And when I called the therapist, he gave me what I needed. And then Eli just went to school for the testing and he aced the stuff. Like,
being at home though with homeschooling, it probably allow him to heal.
Yeah.
Especially emotionally.
Yeah.
Allow some healing to take place.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
And you're a great mom.
I'm excited. It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
But it's one that,
got it.
Yeah. And that's another thing, like in terms of leaving, everyone is so overcome with the challenge of leaving.
Okay.
I think about how I was married. I was married in total for 8 years. I don't know, something. It was whatever. It was 6 to 8 years, something like that, right? Call me crazy, but I mean, it was an abusive situation. So like, whatever, right?
Okay.
I think about these women that have been there for 28 years, for 35 years, for 15 years. And then it really, honestly, technically, it doesn't matter whether it's been 6 months or 2 days or a year or whatever. But these women who have 6 and 7 kids, who haven't been working for years, who may not, and I'm a resourceful person, they may not know how to navigate the systems.
Yes, there's a lot of people that do not know how to navigate, know how to find out. And you have to be careful so that the abuser doesn't find out.
In this system, like if you don't have an active protective order, there's nothing that the police department will do. The court system will put your address on the paperwork. Like there is no. And so one of the things that I do want to highlight is that every county has a nonprofit that assists domestic violence victims.
Is this across the U.S. or?
Mm-hmm,
okay.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Every county has a nonprofit that is affiliated with the courthouse.
Okay.
That will help you fill out the paperwork. Some of them, not all of them, but depending on their grants and how things turn over or whatever. But some of them have staff in the office that will sit in court with you.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? The military has their own program as well. If you go to the Soldier Support Center, there's an office in that building that will help you navigate that whole. There are resources that are easy to use that I've been really thinking about doing some kind of PSA work to really highlight these things, because that's easy to find, because it is a lot easier to leave than we're making it out to be. It's a challenge, yes, don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to diminish the challenge, but it is a lot easier to leave.
You're saying there's more resources out there
exactly
than think or know.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be comfortable. Like moving into a domestic violence shelter with my baby and having to be separated from my son was not comfortable. But being in the household where we were being terrorized by a master manipulator was
not comfortable either.
Being uncomfortable in a domestic violence shelter was way better than being in that house with him. You see what I'm saying?
You have to protect yourself and the babies.
Exactly. And knowing that we're worth it.
Absolutely.
Knowing that we're worth it. Like you deserve to be at peace.
Just the peace in your own home is a lot.
That's a non-negotiable.
Is a lot.
That's a non-negotiable. If there's one person in your house that is not at peace, then your household is not peaceful.
No, it's not peaceful.
And if there's somebody in your household that is causing the other person, the other people to be threatened or not able to find the peace that they need, to not be compromised, then it's your responsibility to do something about it.
Thank you, Shauntel. And I wanted to highlight also the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
Yes.
I did some research there. They have a lot of statistics
Mhm.
there. I didn't know that on average there are 24 people per minute that are victims of rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner. I had no clue
It's
that it was
gone
that
up.
frequent.
It's gone up.
Then it said almost 3 in 10 women and 1 in 10 men are victims. And female ages 18 to 24 and 25 to 34 have the highest rates of intimate partner violence.
Oh yeah. And that makes sense to me because that's in the age range where you're really questioning yourself.
And discovering and figuring out who you are. You don't know how to stand in your own power, and
Yeah,
you know,
and you're also separating from the family unit
for the first time.
And it's like, you don't know, I know better. I know me, I'm grown, I can do, and that's where, especially, and I don't want to stereotype anyone, but that happens a lot in situations where you have one partner that's older than the other.
Yes.
One that or one that has experienced life more.
Yes.
And the person who is, and it's not everybody.
No.
You know,
but there's an imbalance there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's an imbalance there.
Absolutely.
But they also have a lot of information on their site.
Yes.
And their number is 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-SAFE. Last two questions, I believe. First, I want you to tell us about intense movement and how you're using also yoga to heal yourself and that journey.
Wow. Okay. So I'll start with the yoga part because that's what it leads right into intense movement.
Okay.
My yoga practice is the foundation of why intense movement even exists.
Okay.
I started yoga in 2007. I was an active duty soldier and I was experiencing a lot of pain. I'm finding out now it's because I was injured. And this injury affects my spine. And I've been active all my life, and having pain is not normal for me. And then also I was experiencing all of the psychological trauma from my marriage. At this point, 2007 in August, I'd been married for almost a year because we got married in 2006 November. And so it's another reason why I am so involved in energy sciences, because I call myself an energy science practitioner. And it's just really understanding how the brain interprets information and then how we translate information through our mind, our body, and our soul, and how it affects the environment we're in and how the environment we're in affects us. And so at this stage, when I'm starting, I was just starting because I needed to do something to manage the pain because I couldn't afford Rolfing. I was already paying for chiropractic work and could spare the change for massage and for acupuncture every now and then, but I needed to manage the pain. And I'd been working very closely with my doctor, but I'm not a medicine taker, so taking painkillers wasn't going to work. So I started yoga and I started becoming more aware of who I am, just simply in a very non-evasive way. And every time I got off my mat, I had a better understanding of who I was, and I had the desire to get back on my mat. And throughout the process, and I'm a self-trained dancer, and I realize now that dancing is what kept me whole in a childhood riddled with sexual abuse. And I turned out gaining some talent in it all, and I'm also a researcher and I've been studying the brain patterns since I was 12. I wasn't watching a whole lot of stuff. I was reading scientific studies.
I know you're very much into reading. When I deal with you, I'm like,
you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I know you do your research.
So, and I've always been very quirky, very different. I always feel like I'm out of place. I always felt like I'm out of place, and not necessarily in a negative way, but my family doesn't do the things that I'm into. And diving deeper into what I'm into kind of pulled me farther away from my family. But the reality is I was never really close to them anyway. So I decided to pursue yoga teacher training. Like I was on the path where I was going to pursue physical training, but I didn't necessarily agree with the whole way that it's done because it's not just a physical thing. It's more to it.
Mind, body connections.
Mind, body, spirit, all of it. And vibration, which is where energy science practitioner ended up evolving out of my yoga practice and just saying like, hey, there's more to it. And I decided to become a yoga teacher and take a 200-hour teacher training.
Okay.
And that was a huge investment of time and money. But I didn't realize that it was going to change my life. And what it really did for me was that it gave me the courage to stand and just be who I am. Not really needing to have, I guess in the root of it all is just not really needing to have the validation from anyone because it was clear I wasn't going to get that. And so I had to raise myself, like I had to rear myself. Financially, my mom was very affluent, but in terms of emotionally, I had to rear myself. And so just really coming to terms with like, I'm really standing on my own and being on my mat. I had to focus on me in a way that I never focused on me before. And it made me resolve in standing on my own, I am enough.
I can see it when we do yoga together.
Yeah.
You're so free and empowered when you're on that mat.
Yeah.
So no, I love it. I love it. And I enjoy doing yoga with you. And
that's one of and that makes me feel good because that's the essence of one of the teachings that I hold tight to. One of the ancient yogis said, yoga isn't about the postures and asanas. It's not about what you're doing on your mat. Yoga is more about how you preserve the space that you create for yourself on your mat in the rest of your life. It's about what happens off your mat. Can you sustain the peace that you come to when you're sitting on? Anybody can sit still and breathe. Well, I mean, it takes work, but anybody can sit still and do breath work. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Anybody can learn asana or the physical postures. Anybody can chant. Anybody can hold malabis or wear malabis or look really cool in a posture standing in front of a tree. Anybody can do that. But can you take the principles that you're embracing? Can you hold the container for yourself when you're standing in an argument with someone who is trying to hurt you and still be at peace and still take the time to consider your authentic response and give that no matter what the consequences? And I needed that space. And so for me, it's been really important through my journey, my professional journey. I've always been so conflicted and so unhappy because I need to do work that matters, that helps people. Like I need to know that what I'm doing is helping people. And if I cannot be fully invested in it in that way, it doesn't serve me and it makes me miserable. Or just doing the same thing every day, all of the time.
I know you are a server. I see you. I see you. Even when the students, when we were in the gym, together doing yoga, all of us are so connected to the process, but it's through your guidance and you teaching us. So I started learning that yoga is so much more because I've done yoga. I've gone to yoga classes, but it's a completely different experience when you're leading.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I absolutely love it.
And that's and it's on my mat that I realized that what's in my heart matters. Some people, they believe that if you follow the heart, you lead yourself down a perilous road. But I believe that this experience is an all-encompassing one. Like there has to be balance in the head and the heart and the body and the spirit. There has to be balance. All of them have to be aligned. And it's not about neglecting any one of the capacities. It's about fully honoring yourself.
Yeah. And you make me do that. You make me get back to my awareness when I sit on the mat with you.
Yeah.
Because, I'm high energy, flying, this, that. And you make me have to breathe. I'm like, what is she talking about? I am breathing.
Exactly.
No, Tamara, do it this way. Spend this time. And I'm like, huh?
Right. Why?
But it became so much easier. And I'm like, maybe one day I'll get one of those deep breaths that she's doing.
Maybe. But the fact that you're actually considering the breath now. it's a slow journey. It's not something you're going to jump. There's something that might move you. Yes, but it's a all-encompassing thing.
I take breath now
Yeah,
sometimes, and I'm like, okay,
yay.
breathe,
Ha, 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 ha.
breathe.
But I also I've learned that I'm fascinated with the personal progression. I love watching the process of a person evolving.
Yes, it is a process, and you always get to see yourself changing, improving.
I
You know,
yeah, like it's
isn't it the best?
yes,
It's the best.
yes, and that's how intense movement came about for me, because first of all, it's intense movement.
Yes.
It's intense, and then
Yes.
two, most people that come across me, they say I'm very intense, and it's just the way I am. Like when it works and it's the truth, like, hey, why? Who can't be like, what? This isn't exciting. You, what's wrong with you? You know, I mean, I don't mean to be judgmental, but if you can't get excited about that, we got a problem. You know, I don't think I want to be around you if that doesn't excite you, because this is exciting. So I'm pretty intense. And so I'm also a wordsmith. So, and really just not wanting to be misconceiving. Advertising should be truthful to me.
Oh, authentic.
You see? So if you want me to work with you and you're like, hey, what do you guys do at Intense Movement? And I say, listen, this process is not a comfortable one. It's going to be intense. You can't, if you go running because you didn't realize that, I'm gonna be like, did you see the website? Intense Movement. The email is the movement is intense, because this journey has to be self-elected. My first question to my clients is, are you ready to address what's blocking you from growing?
I think you asked me that.
Mm-hmm. Because if you don't say yes, then I can't help you.
I think you asked me that. And I know I said yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
You know.
And I've gotten to know, and I was like, okay, well, let me give you a reference to this person because I feel that they're more of a fit for you. And they were upset, but I was just like, there's somebody who really needs my help that is ready.
Yes.
And I don't have a ton of clients at once. It's a very all-inclusive thing. So I'm not gonna, if my spirit isn't guiding me to move in the way that you're requiring, I can't, it's not about money for me. Yes, I have to pay bills, but at the same time, this is a spiritual process for me personally.
I know it is for you.
And so if we're gonna dive in, you gotta be ready for it, because your life is gonna shift.
Yeah, you're gonna change. Now, how do we contact you?
Okay, so the easiest way to contact me is to jump on the website, intensemovement.net, and you can go to the contact section and contact us section, and it'll send me an email directly. Okay. Some people are like, just give me the direct. The email is themovementisintense@gmail.com.
And you're on Instagram and Facebook, right?
Yep, at Intense Movement. Instagram is intense_movement, and Facebook is just straight up Intense Movement. So it's really, really easy.
Okay. One last question. What makes you a convinced and confident woman?
What makes me convinced and confident is that I'm self-aware. I know who I am. I know I'm gaining a better understanding of what I need to be fully realized, and I'm courageous enough to stand up and advocate for that.
I think that's awesome. And thank you, Shauntel, for joining us today and sharing your life with us.
No problem. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Bye. Thanks.